Okay, here we go. Good morning, Internet. This is Olin from What I'm Listening To. So normally with these vlogs, I tend to focus on music and albums by bands and bands alike. But for today's vlog, I'm switching it up just a little bit. Instead, I'm going to be focusing on soundtracks, and specifically video game soundtracks. Growing up, I used to be a pretty big gamer. I grew up with a Nintendo 64 and a Sega Genesis, and gradually collected other systems like the PlayStation 2, the GameCube, the Wii, all those fun things. So I have a lot of great memories of playing video games, and there are a lot of video games that I actually liked because they had fantastic music. So today I want to highlight some of my personal favorite video game soundtracks, some of which I own official releases of, and others I have on CDRs, but regardless, I have them and I'm excited to show them off, so let's get started. The first CD I have here, this is the Sonic Adventure 2 soundtrack. I never had the original on the Dreamcast. I actually got the reissue, the Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, which was reissued on the GameCube. But regardless, I grew up with Sonic. On our Sega Genesis, we had Sonic 2, Sonic Spinball, and Sonic 3D Blast. Eventually, we got this game, and it was mind-blowing to me. I had seen Sonic in 3D, but that was Sega Genesis 3D, so it wasn't at its tip-top quality. This, on the other hand, was way different. I loved that you could play as all the different characters, Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, and they even had unique levels associated with them. And with each character was a different style of music. Sonic's songs tended to be a lot more alternative rock-based. Tails had some techno, but also rock, so it was more like electronic rock. Knuckles had some hip-hop, some R&B mixed in, which I thought was really interesting, but the songs of his, I think, are my favorites. Shadow had industrial-sounding stuff, Rouge had pop and R&B, and Robotnik, like Tails, also had electronic rock. This is 2 discs of music. One side is the light side, so the good guys, and the second disc is the bad guys, which the disc is falling out, please don't fall out. But yes, this soundtrack is phenomenal. For those of you who've played the game, you know that there's some great songs on here. This is one of my favorite albums to own, and I'm so excited that it's in my collection here. The next albums I have here are both Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. I had a friend, he was my neighbor. I used to go over to his house almost every single day. There we would play a lot of different video games. He had a couple of his own video games, but he also had an older brother that had video games, and that's how we were able to get our hands on Kingdom Hearts. I never did play Final Fantasy back in the day, but I was very familiar with Disney characters, so to see Disney interact with other non-Disney characters was really fascinating to me. The concept was so cool too. You would be going to all these different planets, which each planet was the universe for the Disney movies. So you had like Tarzan, Aladdin, Winnie the Pooh, Peter Pan, all these classic places. Initially, when I was playing the video games, I wasn't really paying much attention to the music, but I will say there was one particular song that stuck with me and is probably the reason why I bought these, and that's the Traverse Town song from Kingdom Hearts 1. So when I found out you could buy the soundtrack physically, I had to own it. I wanted to get the song. So I bought it, and I'm happy I did, because not only is the Traverse Town song on here, but there's some great other songs. A Day in Agrabah is another one of my favorites. Destiny Island song is great. Just everything on here. Both discs are great. And because I got the first one, I had to get the second one. It's funny because I bought the second soundtrack before I even played the second game. I just knew that I liked Kingdom Hearts 1 soundtrack, and so I thought, hell, I'll probably like the second one. They revisit some of the songs off the first soundtrack because you go back to those worlds in the second game, but there's also some new stuff too. The Twilight Town song is almost like the Traverse Town song, but a sequel to it. It's got that similar mellow jazz sound. there's even a version of One Wing Angel, which is from Final Fantasy VII, that I thought was really cool because by the time I played this game, I was pretty familiar with the Final Fantasy world, and it was exciting to see that they had incorporated more of the Cloud versus Sephiroth kind of story there. So yes, these are great soundtracks. These are fantastic games also. Highly recommend checking out both the games and the music if you haven't yet. They are really good and fantastic stories.
You walk away, you don't hear me say, please, oh baby, don't go. Say, omoidaseba, haruka, haruka.
Okay, the next one I have here, this is kind of silly to have, but I have the Corpse Party soundtrack. My girlfriend bought this game on the 3DS, and it came with the game, a figurine, and the soundtrack for the game. I didn't know a single thing about this game at all, but apparently it's a pretty legendary horror game. When she was playing it, she would be messaging me and she'd be talking about how, oh my god, this part of it's really fucked up, or oh, this happened, and yada yada yada. So eventually, after she beat it, I sat down and played it myself, and I got to experience the really creepy story that this has. To sum it up, it's about a bunch of kids who do this ritual incorrectly. They're sent to this alternate world of a haunted school. There are ghosts around, and there's the spirits of other kids who did the same ritual that you can interact with. Some of the kids die, some of the kids survive. All in all, it's just a very gruesome story. And the music on here is pretty creepy sounding. It's definitely a game worth playing. It doesn't really involve too much strategy, it's more for the story. But if you like story-based games, then you will probably like this. Alright, the next albums I have here, these are some of my favorites. I have 3 albums, all from Legend of Zelda games. Legend of Zelda means a lot in my life. As I said before, I grew up with a Nintendo 64, so I grew up with Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and then when I got the GameCube, I eventually got Wind Waker. So starting things off, Ocarina of Time, what else could I say? Anybody who plays video games knows this game. It's considered one of the best video games of all time, and it's got some of the best video game music in my opinion. The song that plays when you're in the market I think is one of my favorites. The Shadow Temple song's another favorite. The Gerudo Valley theme, another classic song. There's just so many great things on this. The game is great, the music is great. I don't know what else more I can say about this. All I know is if you have not played this game, you should definitely play it. They have it remade on the 3DS so it's easily accessible. They have it so you can download it on the Wii. It's easy to play, so play it and listen to this. Majora's Mask is the sequel to Ocarina of Time, and I think it's my favorite game of all time. It's a Legend of Zelda game, but the story is so dark and the universe is so creepy, and that's just what I love about it. There's sort of this underlying desolate feeling that goes on in the game because the moon is going to be crashing into the world and killing everybody in 3 days. So you can see how everybody's handling this realization. Some people are in denial, some people are accepting it, some people are scared. It's the first game I played where other stuff is going on in the world that isn't the main story. And what I mean by that is you could be somewhere in the game and something else could be going on in another town. I've played this game so much. I go through phases where I will sit down with the game and play it all the way through, try to 100% it, and I enjoy every moment of it. And when I was a kid, I stumbled across somebody selling this on, I believe it was Amazon.com, and it was mind-blowing to me that you could buy the soundtrack on CD. That's a soundtrack that I grew up listening to when I played the game. And that was the same with the Ocarina of Time one, too. So when I bought it and I got it and I put it on my CD player, I could not begin to describe how excited I was to be hearing these songs on my headphones. This is one of my favorite things that I have in my collection. It's one of my favorite soundtracks. It's one of my favorite games. I'm so excited to have this. And before I forget, I have to give a shout out to the Wind Waker soundtrack. Next to Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, this is also probably one of my top 3 Legend of Zelda games. These, in fact, are probably the top 3 games that I love. When the game was first coming out, everybody seemed to criticize it because it didn't really look like a Legend of Zelda game. It looked really cartoony and different and weird. But the plot of it is really, really good, and the universe behind it is just as good, and there's just some great songs on here. The Earth Temple song was always one of my favorites. Dragon Roost Village, another classic song. Yeah, this is just another great soundtrack to another great game. I love Legend of Zelda so much. I'm so happy to have these. Okay, next up I have soundtracks that are burned onto CDs. And starting things off, I have the Limbo soundtrack. We live in a really cool time where even though soundtracks aren't put out officially on physical CDs, the composers will release them digitally, whether that be through Bandcamp or SoundCloud or through whatever means they can get them out. They'll release the soundtracks for people to get. Limbo was one of those soundtracks. It's one of the most unique looking games I've ever seen. It's a side-scroller, it's a puzzle game, and it's just a really creepy universe. The soundtrack to that matches how the game looks. Ambient music that's very dramatic and powerful and emotional. When the game came out, a lot of people were considering it one of the first art games, and if you play it, I think you will tend to agree that it just looks visually stunning, and the plot has a lot of underlying themes that everybody can interpret in different ways. It's a fantastic game. This is actually one of my favorite soundtracks. I say that for a lot of these, but this one is easily one of my favorite soundtracks. It appeals to my love for ambient and experimental music just because of how different it is, so I'm happy to own this one. Speaking of ambient music, I have the Minecraft soundtracks. I got into Minecraft really late. I got into it on the Xbox, which I know a lot of PC users are gonna shame me for, but I was primarily a console gamer, so I didn't really care much about PC gaming. So when they released Minecraft on the Xbox and I watched a couple Let's Plays of it, I thought, this game looks really fun, I'm gonna get this. So I went through a phase of playing the game quite a bit. And one of the things I loved about the game was the music. It was just so atmospheric and relaxing. It really kind of fit the mood of the game, which was just kind of a chill game to build, dig, explore, and just fuck around. I think C418 took a lot of influence from Brian Eno and Harold Budd with these compositions because they remind me so much of the Ambient 2 album. They're all beautiful records. I have Minecraft Volume Alpha, which was the first one he released, and Minecraft Volume Beta, which is the second one he released. I don't know if he ever officially released them on CDs, but for now I'm cool with the CDRs. If he does eventually get them on CDs, I will get them, but until then, I will be enjoying them here. The next albums I have here are a collection of the Cry of Fear soundtracks. Cry of Fear was interesting It seems like a standalone game, but it was actually a mod for Half-Life. I want to say it was like 2, 3, maybe 4 guys took the Half-Life engine and made this psychological survival horror game out of it. It ended up winning a lot of awards for Best Mod and Best Independent Game, and for good reason, because the story is really interesting and terrifying. Not to mention, the music is amazing. Andreas Romberg is the primary composer, and I think it was just him on guitar and synth and just playing some drums here and there, and he creates this desolate, depressing sounding post-rock music. Some of it is really, really intense, and other songs are more there for ambience and atmosphere. He's gone on to release a couple of solo albums as well as contributing to a black metal band, which is really good. When the game was out, they released the initial soundtrack, and over time they would release other stuff, so we have Lost Tracks and Memories and Lost Tracks and Manhunt for a later mod that they made. They just kept releasing solid music, and I bought every single one of them. It's a really, really cool mod. I'm not even sure if you can play it. If you can, you should definitely play it, but you should also look into the soundtrack, and particularly if you're interested in post-rock and ambient music, I think you might enjoy the things that you hear on those soundtracks. The last things I have here are my other favorite video games that aren't Majora's Mask, but these are definitely my other favorite games. I have soundtracks for the Timesplitters video games. Going back to that friend who I used to hang out with, one of the many video games that he had access to was Timesplitters 2. It's a first-person shooter game where you go back and forth in time. You can go to the deep, deep future or the past, and you get to see all these different aspects. At the time, the only first-person shooter games I'd really played were the 007 video games, GoldenEye, World's Not Enough, Agent Under Fire, all of those. But the thing that really interested me about these games were the fact that they had zombies and robots and aliens all in one game. And I loved that in each time period they had time-specific guns. So in alien levels or robot levels, you had like plasma and laser guns. In zombie levels, you just had straight-up shotguns or pistols or sniper rifles. And I have very fond memories of playing co-op with my friend. We used to not be very good at the game, and I remember playing the first level on normal difficulty, which wasn't on easy, just normal, and we had a very hard time doing it. And one day, I remember we actually beat the level, and I cannot begin to explain how excited we were. So we would progress through the game on the normal difficulty, and I had such fond memories of playing the game, getting really excited, and just bonding with my friend. Some of the stuff on here kind of sounds like club music. It's very electronic based, there's some dance stuff to it. But again, because it deals with time, every song seems like it's more oriented toward that time frame. I'm sad that they haven't released another one of these games after Future Perfect. I hope one day that we'll get a Timesplitters 4 or a proper remake to the first game, but until then, I will be enjoying the hell out of these albums. Alright, Internet, that does it for me. This is probably the longest vlog I've ever filmed, so we might have to split this up into 2 parts. But if you have any songs or albums you want me to check out, particularly any video game songs or albums you want me to check out, leave a comment down below, and if I like it, maybe I'll include it in a vlog. But until then, this is Olin from What I'm Listening To, signing out. Goodbye.
Batman coming through, straight hunting for fruit, eating pills like a waka waka coming for you. I got ghosts in my way, but I ain't afraid. Silver pills gonna make you run for me in this maze.
Pinky,